Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Restoring Hope with Crosswinds Counseling. I'm your host, Curtis Smith. Thank you for joining us tonight. And we have to thank our community partners as well. Would not be here without them. A huge thank you to Shepherd Community Center, Prime 47 Downtown, and Tesco. Without their support and without the partnership with WHMB TV 40, we would not be able to join you each Thursday night. Tonight, we are so excited to have our first guest with us. Jim Merritt has been a powerful voice in Indiana government for more than 3 decades. He served in the state Senate for 30 years and is a former chair of the Marion County Republican Party. Jim, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
30 years in government. I'll bet you've seen a thing or two.
Yeah, it was quite a ride. And I left about November of 2020.
Yeah.
And after 30 years, and I felt like I could do more outside the Senate than in.
So it's been a full year now.
Yes.
Have you found that to be true?
Yeah, it's allowed me time to think and concentrate on different issues that I ordinarily wouldn't be working. Constituent service for a state senator is really at the hub of everything that individual does. And so without having that as a large component of what I did as a state senator, it's given me time to think and work on some other issues.
Before we talk about that, tell me about those 30 years. What are some of the highlights for you? What are some of the things that you think about, that you look back and say, boy, I'm really proud of that. I'm really glad we accomplished that.
I'm proud of writing the bill that established really the BMV's future of not having to go to the license branch. If you recall, it was hours when you had to wait. And I
do recall.
Yes, and of course the kid's first license plate, the safe haven law, where you could drop your baby off at a police station or a hospital, the lifeline law, where we talked 149 of the legislators and a governor that giving immunity to someone that's overserved at a party would save lives, and it has. And working on the opioid issue, bringing 211 to the state of Indiana. I'm very, very proud of that career, and I'm really ready to do more.
You used the phrase saved lives, and I was thinking as you were describing your career, I can't imagine how humbling and powerful it would be to look back at a career and say, I did things that saved lives. I did things that impacted Hoosiers in an incredible way. What is that like for you?
Well, it makes you shiver a little bit with, for instance, the safe haven law. We had a birthday party, and 8 years the law was in place, and we had all the babies that were 8 years old come to a birthday party at the State House. We save countless lives with somebody that is overserved at an event, and we know that actually happened because they did call 911, or they text 911 because kids don't call, they text.
And don't use a phone as a phone.
Exactly, and so it just kind of gave me the shivers that now with the pandemic, 211 was the number that you call to get information, and the state of Indiana is using that now. And I found that in Atlanta, and it was happening in New Hampshire. So it does give me goosebumps to know that I try to make a change or make a difference.
Just wonderful. Jim, you mentioned focusing on other things now that you've moved on from the Senate. And I know one of the things that matters to you is mental health.
Right.
Where are you seeing Hoosiers right now as we hopefully come out of the pandemic? It's been more than a year and a half now. Where do you think our mental state is, and why is mental health so important to you?
Well, first of all, my friends at the Mental Health Association of Indiana, their hashtag is mental health is health. And trying to get it together where if you have a broken arm or you have depression is really the same thing and treated the same way in the way of severity. And I really believe, we're talking about Crosswinds Counseling, I believe in counseling. We're on the outskirts of a mental health bubble going on. And it just really, it boggles my mind that we are not concentrating more on depression, on anxiety, and suicide. When all the facts come out on 2020 and 2021, we're going to see a lot of family estrangements. And that's what's so great about Crosswinds Counseling, is that that they go in and talk to people, and corporations should be worried about their employees with all the stress in their lives, and coming back into the office and having that situation where you usually walked your dog at 11 o'clock in the morning because you were working from home. That you can't do that anymore. Maybe you took a jog at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You can't do that anymore. It's a life change, and we need to help people get back into the swing of life, into going back in the office and going to the movies and the gym. And Crosswinds Counseling can offer that incredibly for corporate Indiana and for the 6.6 million Hoosiers that we have in this state right now.
One of the big barriers has been the stigma around going to counseling and dealing with mental health. It's so easy sometimes to hide the problem. It's not like a broken arm where everybody sees it.
Right.
Depression can be hidden.
Right.
Are we dealing with that stigma better? Are we getting better about helping that to go away?
Well, I had counseling. And the first time I went to counseling, I parked down the street because I had a Senate license plate on the back of my car, and I didn't want anybody to know that I was in counseling. And I walked out the door, and I thought, you know what, that was such a great feeling coming out that door. And the counselor was so good that I parked right at the front door last time, because if I'm going to be a leader and I feel good about it, I think counseling is something that everybody ought to commit to. And so the question is where do we go from here? You know, we have the Colts with Kick the Stigma.
Right.
And it is stigmatized. And everybody is supposed to be so perfect. Well, you're not. And I would encourage everyone out there to seek counsel, because we all need somebody to talk to.
Yeah. Jim, real quickly, tell me, what has the counseling meant to you personally? What has it done for you in your life?
Well, it's allowed me to be fair with myself. It's allowed me to think in big rooms and help others. And I have a more of a calmness about my life. And I would encourage anyone to reach out to someone else and talk to them about what's going on in your life.
That is wonderful. Jim, thank you for being with us tonight, being so candid in this conversation, and thank you for your years of service to the Hoosier State. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Curtis.
We'll be right back.
Worry, conflict, and fatigue don't have to rule your life. There are always challenges, and working with a counselor to navigate them may be the best decision for you. Crosswinds counselors are compassionate, qualified, and dedicated, and they can give you the support you deserve. Whether navigating crisis or seeking personal growth, this is your pivotal moment. Contact us today. Years from now, you'll remember today as the day hope was reignited.
Shepherd works with both the first and second generation to break the cycle of poverty. It's a two-gen approach to say we want to help the parents and the students to help them have the tools for them to break the cycle of poverty.
You know, it's easy to think programs make a difference, but we know from 35 years of experience, relationships is effective.
In this world, we don't need more programs. We need to know that more people care for us.
Welcome back. Each week here on Restoring Hope, we take a few minutes to introduce you to a Crosswinds Counseling executive who talks about the concept of having hope. Tonight, we welcome back Abe Hepler. Abe reminds us that God is always present and waiting for us to turn to Him.
Hi, my name's Abe Hepler. I'm one of the executives at Crosswinds. And today I want us to take just a moment and look at kind of a crazy story that we find in the Old Testament. There was a man in the Old Testament by the name of Elisha. And Elisha had some really cool stories told about him, but my favorite story about Elisha actually happened after he died. I want to read this to you real quick. In 2 Kings chapter 13, starting in verse 21, we find these words. There were a group of Israelites who were burying a man, and suddenly they saw a band of raiders. So they threw the man's body into Elisha's tomb. But when the body touched Elisha's bones, the man came back to life and stood up on his feet. Now this is a crazy Old Testament story, right? One of the strangest stories, I think, maybe in the whole book. But it has a whole bunch of really interesting elements to it, right? There's death, there's mourning, there's a group of people burying their friend. There's bad guys, right? As they get into this position where they're trying to bury their friend, a group of bad guys shows up that's coming to raid them, to steal from them, to threaten them. And so in a panic, in probably one of the darkest moments of their existence, they just toss the body of their friend into this tomb. Now I gotta think, for some of us we might find ourselves maybe not in this exact same position, but with a similar experience, where we're facing dark days, challenging things, hard, difficult situations. Maybe we're even scared of what's coming. Maybe we're scared of what's going to happen next. But in this moment where these guys find themselves in this position, they throw the body of their friend into this tomb, and God intervenes and does something incredible. And God is waiting to do the same thing for us. He's waiting for us in these dark moments to look to Him, to turn to Him, and let Him work a miracle for us, to bring us hope in the middle of the darkness.
Welcome back to Restoring Hope with Crosswinds Counseling. I'm Curtis Smith. Tonight we are blessed to have two wonderful guests with us. Scott Hockett is here, and he's the founder and executive director of Damascus Road, a recovery ministry here in Indianapolis, and he joins us tonight. Scott, thank you for being with us. Tell us a little bit about Damascus Road. This is a ministry that has done some incredible work in the lives of men here in Indianapolis. Tell us about your ministry.
Damascus Road was really born out of an absence that I discerned whenever I started going to Saul to Paul ministries in Ellettsville after the 7-month period of time that you spend there really rebuilding a broken life. And so when I started going back to Saul to Paul, they asked me immediately to engage in, kind of post-program and just come back and share once a week. And I think it's sort of their way of staying connected to people that have graduated the program and really keeping those people engaged with Saul to Paul for future alumni, just so that those people would see that, after Saul to Paul, there's a place to go, and there's an effort as a disciple, and that is to become a disciple maker. So coming back there every week, I discovered there was an absence of a program, really a next step, so that guys could really leave there after 7 months and not faceplant.
So it was born out of that experience.
Yes.
And so what does Damascus Road then do? Where does it take men in that next step?
Primarily, we focus on fellowship with like-minded people with the commonality of brokenness through drugs and alcohol abuse, and really training them to be disciple makers. Our goal is to, first of all, bring someone in that is already in a relationship with Christ, and then help them engage, because we believe that the missing piece in success post-addiction is engagement, is really staying engaged in other people's lives so that there's a little less time for you to think about yourself.
I suspect in the midst of this pandemic, when isolation has been more of a struggle for everybody, it's been the exact same case. Keeping people engaged, keeping them out of isolation has been a bigger challenge than ever these last 2 years.
Yeah, it is a challenge for a lot of people, but it has not been a challenge for Damascus Road. We really just trusted the Lord with what He's brought us. We trusted Him with His guidance and direction in terms of what protocols we needed to install and maintain. And truthfully, our guys didn't miss a day of work. I mean, some of the businesses that we connect them with as a job were what Indiana determined to be necessary. And so we were able to work through that entire pandemic.
Scott, I know that the motivation for this for you is very personal. I know that you have a journey through this same thing. You talked about Saul to Paul. Do you mind sharing a little bit about your journey and why you're so passionate about helping men in this situation?
Sure. I think, when you get to a point where you're repentant and you get yourself into a position where you can be shepherded, and where you submit, to a new authority in a new place like Saul to Paul, when you submit and you have rules, I'm mopping the floor, we've got a work schedule, I've got to mop the floor, I've got to do different things along those lines. And also we're studying the Word of God 30 to 40 hours a week, along with fellowship and things that are really centered around Christ and developing a Christ walk. And then you get 30 or 40 hours of hard labor. So, when you really think about, the journey, from my perspective, Saul to Paul came about as a result of my wife was sending money to them on a monthly basis. And when I confessed that I was a drug addict, an alcoholic, an adulterer, I was a treasonous husband. I was in another country. I was in Canada, working on a business that was about to die, but it was on life support. And I confessed that to her, and we knew that I needed to get in and get some help somewhere. But we just didn't know where. There weren't any beds available at the places we were checking, especially that time of the year, because it was winter. And so there weren't beds available. So she looked down and she just had a thank you letter from Don Sink, the director at Saul to Paul, and she said, "Oh my gosh, Saul to Paul. We can send you to Saul to Paul." So, I went to Saul to Paul kind of expecting that, I'd be there a few weeks, just get dried out, really refocus. But when I went for my interview there, Don asked me a question. He said, "What do you want?" And I said, "I want to have a closer relationship with God, and I want my marriage to be fixed, and I want my children to have a father that they can be proud of." And he said, "Well, are you sorry about your sin? And do you view it as sin?" I said, "Of course I do, and I am sorry. My wife knows that." And he said, "Explain that to me." And so I told him, I was the leader and director of a very successful business. Imagine, I had a 22-year marriage at the time, and I had been treasonous. By all accounts, she should have left me. And many people, including family members, said, "Run, you need to get away from him." I was the leader of a very successful business, but I was highly functional in my addiction. I was highly functional. I could work and drink and didn't have a problem functioning. But I told Don, I disappointed all my employees, and so I've got to make things right with them as well.
Wow.
And he said, "Are you sorry to God?"
And what did you say?
It was an eye-opening question, because you don't rebuild anything until you rebuild with Christ. And so really that journey at Saul to Paul began with repentance, and that repentance led to incredible hope.
Wow. Scott, thank you so much for sharing your story and for sharing about Damascus Road. Powerful stuff and a great reminder for us to turn to Christ. Scott, thanks for being here tonight.
My pleasure, honored to.
We'll be right back.
In the heart of downtown Indy, at the corner of Pennsylvania and Maryland Streets, it's Prime 47, the city's only independent, locally owned and operated steakhouse, offering gourmet dishes, the highest quality steaks, fresh seafood, and an extensive wine list. Prime 47 specializes in large parties and events. So, whether it's dinner for 2 or 200, it's prime time you visit Prime 47, Indy's Steakhouse, for the finest in dining.
Welcome back. Tonight in our counseling corner this evening, Kyla Neely talks to us about a concept that has become very popular over the last few years, even becoming a bit of a buzzword because it's often a real challenge for those of us trying to engage in mindfulness.
Hi, my name's Kyla Neely, and I'm one of the therapists with Crosswinds Counseling. Today, I'll be talking to you a little bit about mindfulness practice, what it looks like, and we'll wrap up with an example. Mindfulness is a meditation skill rooted from the Buddhist meditation practice. Mindfulness allows us to bring awareness to the present moment without judgment. Mindfulness practice can help decrease symptoms of anxiety, depression, emotion regulation, and also help with pain management. The basics of mindfulness is rooted in deep breathing, which means just taking deep breaths in and out with intention. So being aware of those deep breaths as we breathe in and out. One concept of mindfulness is called the mindfulness body scan. What that allows us to do is bring awareness to any sensations in our body without judgment. I'll show you an example of a body scan. So if we begin with our head, you can begin with your head or toes. So you can scan from head down or feet up. Initially, you'll begin just focusing in on your breathing. So taking deep breaths in and out. In and out. And once you feel comfortable with that, you start at your head and begin to scan your body. So for me, I can feel a little pressure behind my ear. I would sit for maybe 15 seconds to a minute, just kind of acknowledging that pressure, allowing any thoughts to come to the forefront about that pressure, and not judging myself for that pressure. After those 15 seconds to a minute are up, go down to the next part of my body where I feel a sensation. For me, that would be tension in my shoulders. So again, I just sit there, breathing, acknowledging that sensation, the feeling, or any thoughts. Ultimately, I noticed the tension subsided. Continue down the rest of my body. I noticed the pressure on my knees as my legs are crossed. Again, just spending some time there. And going all the way down to noticing how my feet are placed on the ground. And that's what a mindfulness body scan looks like. It allows us to just acknowledge whatever is going on in our body without judgment in the present moment. If you have any interest in learning more about mindfulness, please reach out to us at Crosswinds Counseling.
Tonight, you've learned a lot about Crosswinds Counseling. Perhaps as you've learned about the organization, you haven't thought about receiving help, but you've thought about what it is to help someone else. Maybe you're in that position. Crosswinds Counseling may be the right place for you to do just that. If you're a counselor, therapist, or mental health provider, and you would like to pursue a career with Crosswinds Counseling, we're looking for great women and men to invest into the lives of people and make a real difference. There are job openings in other fields as well. If you would like to join Crosswinds Counseling, you can visit this website. You see it right now on your screen, crosswindscounseling.org/careers, to see the career opportunities here at Crosswinds Counseling. If you know of people who are looking for work in this field, please let them know about Crosswinds Counseling as well. Right now, we have a tremendous need for people to join us in this impactful work of bringing hope to others. With that, our time is up tonight. Thank you for joining us. Next week, we will be here on Thanksgiving night, and we'll share about one of the great holiday traditions right here in Indianapolis, and we'll sit down with the Fishers Mayor, Scott Hockett. Have a wonderful week. Be blessed. We'll see you next week.